Hello, my name is Daniel Jones. I am the lead educator and headmaster of Magic School 2012 on the web, which is located at www.magicschool2012.yolasite.com. I am here to discuss with you today lesson number 1 of term number 1 of Elementary Rituals 1 class at Magic School 2012. Today we are going to be going over chapter 1 of Wielding Power, the Essence of Ritual Practice. The link for this book can be found on the Magic School 2012 website on the Classes Offered or Classes Listed page. All the links for the required course books can be found there, at least the ones that I'm requiring for now. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get right into it today, and I'm going to read together with you chapter 1 of Wielding Power, which is called Rituals of Life. Ritual requires perfected action, perfect attention, and perfect conduct. It requires the body to be disciplined, the heart to be steadfast, and the mind to be clear. Whether in invocation, evocation, thankfulness, or celebration, the purpose should be clear, the aim steady, and the power controlled. Only when these conditions are met can one be brought to that state of knowing where the unknown appears. All else is preparation, practice, and habit. Instructions to members of the Order of Sentinels. Human beings differ from other creatures. We do not come into the world completely pre-programmed. We have to learn to stand, to walk, and even to communicate. Our knowledge of the world is not laid down in the period of gestation, ready to burst into action with the correct trigger. We program ourselves, and this makes us the most dangerous creatures on earth. As children, we are taught to curb and control our power. We learn correct behavior and acceptable ways of using this power. We acquire information on a wide range of subjects and learn under what circumstances we can use this specialized knowledge. We as a species are not specialists with only one particular skill or faculty that has been perfected to a high degree. Our abilities are generalized so that we can apply our various skills and faculties appropriately with changing circumstances. During the course of a day, we take on various roles, for each of which we put on an appropriate mask. A doctor puts on one mask for his office, another for his fellow professionals, one for his wife, one for his children, and another when playing squash. We need to change our persona as changing circumstances require. Ritual is one way of changing in this respect. Even in ordinary life, it is necessary. Preparing to go to work, to go out with friends, for a dinner party, or a sport. All of these activities require one to arrange oneself. We prepare an image and clothe inappropriately, We prepare an image and clothe it appropriately in order to present ourselves in a way that fits easily into the circumstances. This does not disqualify an eccentric who wants to stand out in a crowd. After all, even eccentrics have to spend time preparing their image. Now, eccentric could refer to as scene kids or punk rockers or heavy metal goths or anything like that. We enact so many different rituals in so many different aspects of our everyday lives that we are scarcely aware of half of them. Just consider your day, how you use various ritualized forms of behavior to move from one circumstance to another. The repetition of these forms allows others to recognize and respond appropriately to them. Even today, despite the collapse of many socially accepted forms of behavior, people have rituals of greeting. These enable people, on meeting, to decide how they should speak to one another, what they might have in common, and where their areas of conflict might be. If you know these rituals, human interaction becomes much easier. It is said that on meeting someone, the English first look very quickly with the most fleeting of glances at the other person's eyes. Then their glance moves away to the chin and neck, then to the clothing, and finally to the shoes. In that rapid sequence, the person is assessed. With the eyes, a very short instinctive communication takes place. The chin and neck give information not just on age, but also on attitude. The way the neck is carried gives us clues about people's attitudes. For example, we talk about stiff-necked people. Sometimes jewelry is worn around the neck, and that can display people's allegiances. There are more clues in the clothing a person wears. It reflects the person's subculture and the type of behavior he may be expected to conform to. And finally, the shoes are assessed, whether they are fashionable, shabby, in good repair, or geared towards a specific activity. An Italian or Frenchman would have a different ritual for greeting and assessing the person. Each country has its own ritual, and sometimes these rituals differ from region to region, even within that country. The purpose remains the same, however. It is a means of easing interaction and establishing a relationship within the framework of the social structure and culture. That is why many people carry badges as a means of speeding up such a process. And an old school tie, a crucifix, a slave chain on the ankle, a ban the bomb symbol. By such means, members of subgroups identify one another. They have also evolved rituals of behavior that they all share and understand, so that they know the right sequence to follow in the pursuit of business, courting, challenge and submission, eating, or leisure. Most of what has just been described could be seen as purely habitual. Indeed, it is true that each part of a ritual is habitual. On meeting someone, you automatically say, "Hello." But a ritual is more than that. It is a series of habitual or learned patterns connected together in a definite sequence. This weaving together in a sequential and ordered manner turns haphazard habits, which are simply non-volitional responses to a trigger, into a ritual. Even in the animal kingdom, the mating, defending, or challenging processes are ritualistic and form a sequence of steps. Each step in the sequence also has built within it an opportunity to break the pattern and stop the encounter from continuing. At every step, there is the chance to advance, retreat, or start a new sequence. In the animal world, rituals control the most important aspects of life, such as courtship, mating, and position in the pecking order. This is also true in the case of social animals, since one can challenge for leadership in the hierarchy. These rituals control drives that are basic to all living creatures. Do not challenge my hierarchy at magic school. You will be ousted immediately. In many cases, they control the survival instinct, because the possibility of the ritual moving into a live or die situation does happen in certain species. But if there were no built-in provision within the sequence for one creature to submit to the superior force of another, the species would soon die out. In the world of the human animal, as well, there are rituals of aggression with steps at which the sequence can be broken off. Take the following example, and listen well. The scene is a pub. Two men catch each other's eyes. A. What are you looking at then? Okay. Here's an opportunity for the other person, B, to apologize, but he does not. B says, I was looking at you, which means he immediately takes up the challenge. A turns back and says again, look elsewhere then, which is an opportunity for A and B to break off, or B to break off and leave A alone. B in turn responds with, I'll look where I like, which means he is going to go ahead and continue the challenge. A in turn responds back with, you watch out, still giving room, however, to back off for each party, both A and B, to back off of the situation. But, unfortunately, B responds with, says who, which means he is still challenging A in the situation. A says, I do, which means he is finally picking up the challenge at last. And in turn, B responds with, who the hell do you think you are? Now, the final steps of the challenge begin. A states, I'll show you who I am, and makes a threat at last to B, in which B responds with, yeah, you and whose army? Meaning the battle is now inevitable between A and B in this situation. At which point A promptly responds with one word, outside. Now, what this means precisely depends on the rules of battle that prevail in the area. It could involve a battle with bottles, broken bottles, glasses, broken or whole, razors, knives, or just plain fisticuffs. And of course, B responds by saying, make me, meaning he has to fight now. Everyone in the pub has by now become aware of the clash, and the other men now push them out into the open if the battle is to be formal. In certain parts of the country, the battle breaks out immediately on the premises. Of course, the real reason for starting the sequence is some imagined slight, to display manhood before a girlfriend or to establish superiority within a group. There are many different reasons for starting the aggressive sequence, and there are as many different arenas in which this ritual of aggression can take place. The reasons may vary. But the ritual sequence itself is very similar to the process of the leader of a pack of animals being challenged by another who is attempting to rise higher in the pecking order. Rituals need to be appropriate to the circumstances, and the people taking part in them need to understand the same things by the same actions. During World War II, many American servicemen were stationed in England. Naturally, they wanted to meet English girls, and just as naturally, the English girls wanted to meet them. After a short time, the girls considered the Americans immoral, and their reputation among the English began to deteriorate. The GIs also began to feel contemptuous of the ladies. The situation got so bad that a team of U.S. Army psychologists was brought in to investigate it. The problem arose out of the different courting rituals of the two countries, and the solution was not an easy one. In America, probably originally because of a shortage of women, it had become traditional during courtship for women to be responsible for calling a halt to the development of a relationship. For the English girls, the opposite held true. They expected the men to stop things from going too far. As they did not share a common understanding of the courtship ritual, relationships moved far too fast. Both the men and the women were dissatisfied, with each convinced that the other side was to blame. To solve the problem, it was necessary to start an educational program to inform the American GIs about English ways. Now, if you continue to read on, there is a section titled Marking Life Changes, which is rather long. It encompasses marking life changes, other common rituals, and religion and magic. And that continues from pages 16 to 24. And then the section on the varieties of ritual begin, where we are going to take up right now. Now, the first type of ritual is defense. Rituals are conducted within a space, an external space that should be mirrored by an internal space within the ritualist. We define a space by giving it certain limits. Your garden fence denotes the limits of your private space, and your behavior is modified by which side of the fence you are on. After all, what you do inside your house is very different from what you can do outside it. Defense rituals, which are primarily of an invocatory nature, are a means of creating and maintaining a suitable space in which a ritual can take place. This is done by excluding extraneous influences or by including influences that are in accord with the general purpose of the ritual. Typical methods for excluding alien influences are the delineation of the space by sprinkling charged or holy water, by surrounding it with fire or with the scents of herbs and spices, or by chanting sacred texts. One can call upon the powers of angels or good influences to act as guardians of the space. Patron saints act as guardians of churches and people. Now, commemoration. This is an act of remembrance in which all relevant matters are brought to mind. By reading prayers and scriptures, or by the remembrance of past events recorded in sacred books, or by recalling great figures who embodied particular qualities, all the relevant associations are triggered, invoked, and enlivened, whatever. This evokes in the participants the qualities desired for the operation. Identification with archetypal beings or events recreates the desired attitude in the mind and being of the participant. Commemoration can form only a part of a ritual, as in many religious services, or it can be the whole ritual, whether religious, magical, or secular. It can be a celebratory thanksgiving. Initiation. Initiation is a beginning. It is the first step. Intuitively, we know that the first step we take when making or starting something new is important and colors the whole event. How you get up in the morning can determine the pattern of the day. How you start off a new relationship can set the tone for a lifetime. Initiation rituals therefore seek to enhance the power of beginnings. Where religions are concerned, there is always some form of initiation. In Judaism, it is the circumcision of the male, which is performed when he is at the most 8 days old, so that the event is remembered at a nonverbal level. Child baptism is the norm in the Christian church today, and this too is performed at an age where it is lodged in a child at a nonverbal level. In some Christian sects, the baptism is an imitation of Christ's baptism by John and is undertaken by adults so that the initiation is received in full consciousness. Within the magical tradition, people to be initiated are brought to a position where they can be shown that they are about to start on what may be a lengthy journey. They are usually asked about their motivation, their faith, and their willingness to commit themselves to the journey. Often an oath of allegiance is taken, and the consequences of breaking that oath are also made known. The oath itself is something that cannot be taken about freely or lightly. Recently, there has been much criticism surrounding this question of oaths, but it is extremely useful for the individual to have made such a commitment. The element of secrecy enables the person to keep a guard on his or her tongue and helps to build strength and self-discipline. It is a means of conserving the creative power within. Most creative artists are aware that if they talk about what they want to do, the impetus runs away. It is as if the power that should go into the creative process itself has gone into the process of speech, and its manifestation in that form has left little power for the actual creation. Secret oaths of allegiance are a means of helping initiates to keep to their chosen path. Empowerment. By means of these rituals, the person who receives an object or substance that has been empowered is enabled to embody that power. By invoking the Trinity, the Catholic Church empowers the bread and wine and transubstantiates it into the very presence of Jesus Christ. The priests and congregation then embody the divine person in a participatory ritual. In the old knightly rituals, the sword and spear were dedicated to an objective, and the appropriate power was invoked and made to flow into them. It was as if they contained this power. Sometimes this process is called charging. It can be linked to the process of building up a static charge on glass by rubbing it with the silk cloth. Or perhaps you have seen in laboratories the large metal balls that store electrons. The charge builds up and flashes over like lightning from one ball to another. If the receiver of the charge is weak and cannot contain the huge flow of electricity, it is damaged. This illustrates one problem with empowerment. What is being charged or empowered has to be capable of holding that charge without breaking down itself or damaging other things around it. On a small scale, one can see this when a person who cannot handle power is given power over others. He either burns himself out, or he is taken over by the power of the position and loses all sense of proportion. For this reason, no one should be empowered unless he or she is capable of receiving that power. If they are capable of receiving and handling power, they actually grow in stature with the authority vested in them and dispense power in the appropriate manner. It is not power itself that is corrupting. Power is merely a means of doing something. Power is certainly dangerous. But without it, how can anything be achieved? Water collected and stored is potentially dangerous. If a dam's walls burst, for instance, then it can cause a great deal of havoc. If contained water is released through a controlled channel, it can generate power, and that power may be dangerous and devastating. If it is released in such small quantities that it is not dangerous, it is also no longer a source of energy. Every time we turn on our taps, we use that source of power. We are able to do something with the water. It is useful. Empowerment, therefore, is the harnessing of energy and releasing it through a controlled channel into a receiver capable of storing and utilizing it. Confirmation. This requires individuals to demonstrate both to themselves and others that they do indeed have the power, ability, or status conferred upon them. What may have been a temporary state of affairs is confirmed as a fact. For example, in the services in times of war, People are promoted to an acting rank by the need of the situation itself in order to fulfill a particular function. This is a temporary status which can either be removed once the function is fulfilled, or it might be recognized that the temporary state had now become permanent. Within the magical tradition, a person may be initiated and empowered to carry out certain functions. The fulfilling of the function evokes the desired state of being in the person that is finally confirmed in some manner. Within the Christian church, the individual is initiated at baptism and, on reaching the age of discretion, is brought through teaching and practice to a state where he is capable of taking over the responsibilities which had previously been in the charge of the godparents, and is confirmed in this by the laying on of hands. Discovery. A distinction may be made between divination and discovery. While discovery is the uncovering of what already exists, divination is the intuition of what may happen in the future. See the section on divination below. Among the Theosophists and some sects of the magical tradition, it is said that whatever has existed leaves traces in the present world. These traces exist, as matter is said to exist, in the Akashic records. This rather tenuous level of existence is supposed to be capable of exploration. Perhaps this principle can be discerned in a theory of reincarnation. If a being lives and dies, that life has left its trace within the history of the human species. If the being is reborn, lives another life, and dies, that too is recorded, and so on, with everyone who ever has been and will die. The traces of all these lives persist at that tenuous level of existence within the psyche of the species, and it would be this level that would need to be explored. How could this be done? Imagine that our genetic inheritance is a tree with many branches, and that we stand at the end of a branch as leaf, flower, bud, or fruit. If we travel back along our genetic branch and reach a point where another branch joins it, then we might be able to transfer to that other branch and travel along it, and so on. To travel in this way requires the splitting off of a portion of consciousness and sending it by some means along the branches of the tree. Extending the image further, we can say that in this way it might be possible to identify with any being who had lived in the past. However, there are dangers in this, not the least of which is that the people who leave the strongest traces in the human psyche and have had most effect on their descendants are the ones who are most easily identified with. One's consciousness can thus be absorbed into that identity. That way lies madness, which means, reading again, there are dangers in this, not the least of which is that the people who leave the strongest traces in the human psyche and have had most effect on their descendants are the ones who are most easily identified with. One's consciousness can thus be absorbed into that identity, meaning your spirit will possess that lifetime and drive you mad. Another working principle here is that all existence exists in the present moment, and everything is contained in everything else after its own manner. So whatever exists now also exists within our own selves, and by assessing that within ourselves, we can become aware of what is happening in another space-time continuum. The difficulty here, as with other experiences, is that this kind of awareness of what is happening elsewhere is nonverbal and non-conceptual. I do not speak Russian. If I became aware of what is happening in Russia, all I could experience would be the feeling of being Russian. None of the labels that I have acquired in my life can coincide with Russian labels and concepts, and my description of the experience would be limited to my conditioning. So the nonverbal experience has to pass through one's acquired system of images and words. We are not, therefore, dealing here with the transference of thoughts or images. Incidentally, there is enough modern evidence to show that though transference does not work, but rather with states that can be felt and which are then translated into one's own conceptual framework. There are many well-authenticated cases in which people whose beings are strongly linked, such as identical twins, can affect one another at a distance. It is strong and definite changes in states of being that are transmittable and receivable by some people. The ritual required for discovery, then, must be capable of evoking a specific state of being that can be explored. It does not consist of imagining another person, but of being the other person and feeling the changes that occur in one's being, and then attempting to translate the meanings of such changes into into one's own system of words and images. Sacrifice. Business circles appreciate the well-known occult maxim that there is no such thing as a free lunch. You pay for everything. If you want something badly enough, you can get it, but you have to be willing to pay for it. If you wish to enter the world of the spirit, you will have to give up the rewards of the material world. Justice or karma is the operating law. If you wish to achieve divine union, you must necessarily give up your own will. The things you personally value most must be sacrificed for the sake of things of greater value. In Christianity, Jesus made the supreme sacrifice for the benefit of mankind. Buddha sacrificed his royalty, his family, and all of his possessions, and even that which all hold dear, himself, in order to attain nirvana. He then sacrificed the freedom of nirvana by returning to teach the world a method of release from suffering. Divination. We probably think of divination as a way of foretelling the future by reading omens and signs. And in the West, these activities have certainly moved away from the sphere of the sacred. We no longer have anything like the Oracle of Delphi. Horoscopes in the daily newspaper do not quite have the same ring to them that they once did. Divination literally means becoming one with the divine. The purpose of divinatory rituals is to bring about in individuals a state of knowledge and being that allows them to become one with the divine within them. It is from this basis that they can know the creative possibilities inherent in each moment and in each thing. In each moment and each being. And this is done by using the divine within oneself to know the divine within the other being. The divine within becomes one with the divine in the other, and in this union there is knowledge. It is a sublime knowledge. It is seeing for oneself. This may or may not be expressible. Sometimes the image of what is seen is taken to be the truth itself rather than a clothing of what is present. If the imagery has any objective resonance, then what is seen can be communicated to others. On the other hand, sometimes what is seen is inexpressible. As St. Paul said, "And I knew such a man, whether in the body or out of the body, I cannot tell. God knoweth, how that he was caught up into paradise, and heard unspeakable words, which it is not lawful for a man to utter." 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 3 and 4. Okay, that is the end of chapter 1, Rituals of Life and Wielding Power, the Essence of Ritual Practice. Now, we just discussed chapter 1. Okay. for homework for this lesson, I need you guys to go ahead and submit a 2-paragraph paper about the situation that occurred in the pub in Chapter 1 of Wielding Power on pages 14 and 15. The situation that I told you to pay attention to, that is the situation that I referred to. Okay. Also, the varieties of ritual. We read that just now. There were quite a few of them. Okay. For homework, what I want you to do is I want you to reread or listen to what was read about the situation that occurred in the pub in Chapter 1 of Wielding Power on pages 14 and 15. What I want you to do is I want you to describe in 2 paragraphs what you think went wrong in that situation and what you would have done differently. This is going to be due before next lesson, and I will have an area next to this video for you to submit your work. Don't worry. Also, for homework, I want you to describe in your own words what you think each form of ritual means to you from Chapter 1 of Wielding Power from pages 24 to 31. I will also have a submittable area form for this homework as well next to this video on the Magic School 2012 website, so don't worry. That piece of homework will be due before the airing of next lesson. And finally, for homework, what I want you all to do is I want you to research and perform a ritual of self-initiation to magic. And what I want you to do is I want you to record the process. I want you, there's going to be an area for this as well, probably below this video. And I want you to submit the results in that area before the airing of next lesson's video. So, that is the conclusion of lesson number 1, term 1, for elementary ritual work class 1, or excuse me, elementary ritual work 1 class. Again, I am Daniel Jones. I am your lead educator and headmaster for Magic School 2012 at www.magicschool2012.yolasite.com. I hope you all enjoyed this lesson, and I will look forward to grading your homework before the airing of next lesson. Have a good day, everybody, and I will see you all next week.